Okay, hi everyone. So this is the time. Last lap to CLAT is there. I hope I'm audible to everyone. Can I have a yes, no, anything like that? So I'm assuming that I'm audible to everyone. And we have less than a month in hand. And from here onwards, again, you will be saying that she says the same thing. But this is the time where we are supposed to say the same thing. Not supposed to say the same thing, but that is what is the reality is. That we are just having less than 25 days in hand. Obviously, I'll say that you're not supposed to read or attempt mocks or anything like that in last 2 3 days. And so considering that, let's assume that from preparation perspective we have 20 days in hand. From revision perspective we have 20 days in hand. I'm not keeping the 5 days in hand and saying that you have 25 days. I'll just say you have 20 days in hand. So it is very important for us to understand that what shall be our strategy for next 20 days, how we shall be approaching or streamlining our preparation for next 20 days. And by this time I'm assuming that each one of us are very much familiar with everything. We are familiar with syllabus, we are familiar with the type of questions which is being asked, we are familiar with the type of passages which is being asked in legal section. Similarly, we also know that where we get stuck in legal section, how we are supposed to approach to that particular passage. For example, if there's a passage which is very new to me, I haven't seen that passage or I haven't heard about that concept, so how to tackle that particular passage. Or for that matter, from static, like in 2023 they had given a question from international law. So in international law, it was like people were not, students were not very much familiar with international law thing, but the topic was very generic in term and was explaining the basic funda of international law. So wherever you get such questions or such passages also, which for the first time you are seeing, you need not to worry about it, you need not to panic also. So I think by now we all have understood that how to tackle a particular passage, how to tackle a particular question. Also, we are in a position where always I get this query now that we get confused between two of the option. Both the option seems to be the correct one, so how to go about a particular option. So we are very much clear about that also, that the option which is exactly having the wording of what the law is given in the passage, or the option which is explaining the question in detail would be the right answer wherever we get confused. Then sometimes I also get this query that is it advisable for us to go beyond the passage, like whatever information has been given in the passage, whether I'm supposed to stick to it or whether I shall go beyond it. So at multiple occasion, with giving examples from past year paper, like last year also there was a question from article fundamental right perspective, where you were supposed to have a basic idea and apply the prior knowledge because the concept was not mentioned in the passage. Similarly, in 2020 we had a question, or we had the entire passage based on Arnav Goswami, where 2 3 questions were like that, where even if our prior knowledge law was clear, we could have answered it. Similarly, next year we had passes on compensatory, not sorry, not compensatory, it was compassionate appointment. There was a question, last question, which was saying that if government plans to bring something like the same for medical, if somebody takes retirement on the basis of medical grounds, so whether it can be given or not. So there also article 14 and intelligible differential and everything, if we were aware of then, or if not article 14, the basic news में हमने पढ़ा हुआ था कि गवर्नमेंट ऐसा प्लान कर रही है, so we could have answered the question. So somewhere to some extent there would be one or two questions which gives you an idea, or which gives you a kind of thing that yes, this is where you are supposed to go beyond what has been given in the passage. So don't hesitate in doing so. Although CLAT says that you are supposed to stick, but the very next line, as I always say, of the very next line of syllabus says, first the first line says you need not to know the law, the second line says if you know the law it's very good for you. So considering that, it is important. Similarly, there's a question, my QT and GK are quite weak, my highest is only 74.75, is it possible to improve now? Okay, so when we talk about this thing, that whether at this particular moment how we can improve. So for next 20 days, if you are in class 12, forget that you are in class 12. Forget in the sense that forget what you are doing in your school, because I don't think there is any examination scheduled in school also for next 20 days. So for next 20 days you can focus entirely on your CLAT and ALET preparation. Once you are done with the exam, come back with a bang and focus on your class 12th. I'm not saying that class 12th का नहीं पढ़ना है, but अभी का 20 दिन is very important for us. So considering that, I would not be focusing more on class 12th, I would be focusing more on CLAT perspective. The other thing is, by now each one of you may have written some 40-50 mocks also. So if possible, if you can devote 4 hours daily, so go back and revise these mocks. So sit for 2 hours, write one mock which you have written in past, take a break, like after maybe 4 5 hours, again attempt the other mock. This is one way of revision. So here you need not to go for books, here you need not to look for resources from GK perspective also, because whatever has been given in your 40-45 mocks, all the important topics from GK has been covered in detail. So considering that, हम यहाँ वहाँ मटेरियल से ढूंढने की जगह अगर सिर्फ मॉक को भी रिवाइज करते हैं ना एट दिस पर्टिकुलर टाइम फ्रॉम जीके पर्सपेक्टिव, यू आर एक्चुअली रिवाइजिंग ईच एंड एवरी कॉन्सेप्ट. सो कंसिडरिंग दैट, दो ऑप्शन है, या तो हर दिन हम 2 मॉक लिखते हैं 2-2 घंटे देकर, सारे सेक्शंस को रिवाइज करते हैं. एंड आई एम नॉट आस्किंग यू टू गो बैक एंड राइट अ न्यू मॉक, आई एम आस्किंग यू टू गो बैक एंड रिवाइज द पास्ट मॉक विच यू हैव रिटन. And also, for example, some of you are weak in a particular section and you want to devote more time on that particular section. For example, if you are weak in QT, or if you are weak in GK, तो maybe हम 2 घंटे एक मॉक ना लिख के 4 मॉक उठाते हैं. 4 मॉक का जीके सेक्शन हम 2 घंटे में कर लेते हैं, नहीं, या 4, या जीके तो हम ज्यादा भी कर सकते हैं, बट ठीक है, 4 मॉक का जीके सेक्शन 1 घंटे में करते हैं, ये हम अपना टारगेट रखते हैं. So in that way you would be revising GK also. Similarly for QT also, 1 घंटे का टाइम हैंड में लेते हैं, will attempt 4 mocks together from QT perspective. Same goes for logical and legal and English. If your logical, legal and English is weak, I would suggest sit for 2 hours, take 4 mocks. 4 mocks का logical करो, similarly 4 mocks का legal करो, 4 mocks का English करो. So in this way you are revising a lot on every day. And other than this, attempting 2 or 3 mocks, whatever the, however the time is with you, like whatever is the time after school you are attempting. If you're not having school, if you're a dropper, then in that particular case you can take more or you can solve more mocks or more questions. But for next 20 days, focus on practice as much as you can practice. And once you are bored with practicing, then you can go back and revise things from GK, that is from Manthan, or maybe you are having your own notes also, so you can revise from there. You need not to go and look for different sources, because at this particular moment if you'll start looking for different sources, और anxious हो गए, एंग्जाइटी बढ़ जाती है कि बहुत कुछ पढ़ना है, कहाँ से पढ़े. So considering that, sources को बहुत छोटा रखो and just keep working on that particular source only, keep revising from that particular source only. So if you keep few things in mind na, it will help you a lot. And from 74, Udit, if you take give your 100%, you can still touch 100 ka benchmark, you can still touch, if not 100, 90, 95 for sure. So this is the time where you need to work on this thing. So this was with respect to the what shall be your strategy for next 20 days. And why I say last 2 days don't do anything, because we have to keep ourselves calm and composed also. लास्ट के टाइम में ऐसा होता है ना कि हमें समझ में नहीं आता है, तो हमें लगता है हमें ये भी पढ़ लेना चाहिए, ये भी पढ़ लेना चाहिए, ये भी पढ़ लेना चाहिए. And in that particular case we get confused. So considering that, last one day तो कुछ भी नहीं टच करना है. Just keep yourself calm, composed, do like keep your mind relaxed and go with a fresh mind to write the paper. But for next 20 days you have to be on your toe. Also in today's session, I just like still I get this query that what we shall read from GK, sorry, legal perspective. So what I thought that since the countdown has started, and why don't we go back and just have a quick look of at least last 3 years ka paper to figure out what CLAT has been asking, and accordingly we can shift our preparation from that perspective. So I just wanted to have a quick recap of the syllabus and quick recap of what CLAT has asked in last 3 years ka paper. So considering that this is something which I hope everybody knows, and this is how you have prepared for the exam. 450 words ka passages, now they are reducing the numbers or words in the passages also, but this is generally what is there. And passages are of three type: legal passages, pure legal, when we say static aspect also will fall within this perspective. Then public policy passages, as you have seen last year also, there was questions from certain laws which government had passed and came into picture. Then moral philosophical questions, for example, they had asked questions from obscenity also, Hicklin test and all. Similarly, we see many things or many, issues where moral philosophical aspect comes into picture, or there the balance between ethical perspective, moral perspective, or legal perspective comes into picture. For example, again, I'll take into consideration the recent incident. Many such recent incident has been there where CJI has also made certain statement, and was under the scanner, and that ethical and moral thing came into picture where he had to give a justification also, that what he wanted to say was something else and what was portrayed on social media was something else. So different perspective comes into picture. So considering that, moral philosophical aspect is also very important. So these are the three areas from which you have to study or you have to revise. The second thing is type of questions. So by now we have taken so many mocks. We have, solved last 5 years ka paper also, since 2020 till 2024. These are the type of question which is being asked in legal section. Sometimes it looks like pure RC thing, or sometimes it does look like pure logical thing, but somewhere there is, you can say, touch of legal also. So I mean, it's not that all the passages are from RC perspective and logical perspective. One or two passages are like that, or the questions are like that. But mostly the questions are from the application based perspective only. But yes, it says statement that can be attributed to author. So generally, let's say if there are 8 questions in a particular passage, or let's say 7 questions, like last year we had certain passages like that. So 2 or 3 passages were directly, being asked from the passage. Sorry, 2 or 3 questions were directly asked from the passage, like what is author's perspective, which of the following statement is false in light of what has been whatever information has been given in the passage. So considering that, or why the author feels like that this particular thing or law is not perfect. So from that perspective, the statement that can be attributed to author is one thing. Then the reasoning used by author, for example, if there are certain laws, there are certain flaws in that particular laws. So how the author is, highlighting that flaws, that okay, these are the thing or these are the issues with this, with respect to this particular law. So we have to think from that perspective also. Then applying author's reasoning to a fact situation, we are very much familiar with this, that a given factual situation will be sorry a factual situation would be given. You have to apply the law which is given in the passage, and accordingly you have to answer. Apply specific principle given to a fact situation, then understand how changes to the rules or principle may alter the application to various facts and situation. So let's say the passage is talking about amendment, that this particular amendment has been done to this particular law, and this amendment is planning to bring these changes. ये passage पूरा explain कर रहा है. Now the question, there's one question which is saying that suppose this amendment has not been done. So considering that, we have to go back and apply the past wala thing which is given in the passage. For example, suppose there's an RTI thing. Now there's certain amendment done in RTI, but question is asking about before amendment. So from that perspective, the law will get changed, it will get altered, and accordingly we have to apply in the given fact situation. So these are few things which we need to keep in mind, or the type of question which can be asked from CLAT perspective. Then let's have a quick look at past year, last 3 years ka paper, and what type of questions they have asked, and accordingly you can revise. So in 2022, they had asked questions from constitutional law. Okay, international law was from 2022. I said 2023, but it was 2022. Civil law and personal law. Personal law has been, this is something which has been featuring in last 3-4 years ka CLAT paper. So considering that, if there is anything in news from Hindu law, Hindu Marriage Act, or Muslim Marriage Act. So, considering that, we need to take into consideration. For example, recently we have seen certain judgment from Hindu Marriage Act perspective, where the court had stated that you need to follow the customs or whatever has been given under Section 7. If it is not fulfilled, then your marriage is not a valid marriage. Similarly, there was a compensation, or you can say, uh, thing which was asked under section 125 of CRPC, and court stated that section 125 is a religious neutral law and it applies to each and every religion. So considering that, that becomes relevant. So personal laws, matrimonial laws are very important and relevant. And here it is saying that in 2022 questions were mostly static in nature. However, one may argue that it was inspired from current legal development. So I have always stated कि ऐसा हो सकता है that there's something is in news, but instead of focusing on that particular news, they may pick the static aspect of that information and accordingly they can ask questions. Then areas of fringe or areas occupied major portion of the syllabus. 10 questions were from personal laws, 5 from international, 5 from environment. Environment again this year has been very much in use. Supreme Court at multiple occasions has highlighted the importance of environment, clean environment, relationship between Article 14, Article 21, and right to environment. Not 14, Article 21. Basically, court has discussed at in very detail if they are talking about environment, because right to life does include pollution free environment. So considering that environment law again is very much in news. Then when we talk about 2023, 8 passages, all were from contemporary legal development. 6 were directly from contemporary legal development, while 2 were from indirectly from contemporary legal development. And CLAT has not just asked past 1 year legal development, but even as 3 year old like electoral bond scheme. Now, electoral bond scheme and election thing has been the favorite of CLAT. Either they have asked the same from in legal section or they have asked the same in GK section. So considering that any information which is revolving around election, we need to remember that. Similarly, questions were from wide areas like constitution, criminal, and personal law. Again, see, matrimonial law was the highlight of 2023 paper also. And the focus is shifting from towards contemporary legal development, and this is the likely trend which will continue in 2024, and this will continue in this year also. And then last year again the number of passages reduced from 8 to 5, but the number of questions in a particular passage increased. All 5 passages were from contemporary legal development. 4 were directly from CLD and 1 was indirectly from CLD. And it was focusing more on a very common and always the center of attraction, like freedom of speech and expression, juvenile justice. Then again, see, matrimonial law was here. So considering that, again this year you can expect a question from family law. Similarly, constitutional law has always in news, so you can expect question from constitution also, maybe from fundamental right, maybe from article 20 clause 1 perspective, which I am hoping that they will be asking questions from article 20 clause 1, because we have BNS, we have IPC, and retrospective application of criminal law is not there. So considering that, I am hoping that they would be asking question from article 20 clause 1 also. Then certain aspect from judiciary perspective also, since we are celebrating 75 years of judiciary, and also with respect to certain articles like 142 which talks about complete justice. So considering that, you can expect questions from there also from constitutional law perspective. Similarly, certain schedule has been in news. So 5 6 has been in news, 10 is always in news, so you can expect question from there also. And then fundamental right, obviously 14 is there, article 12 also which defines state, article 19 is there, article 21 is there, which has been the core area, because these are the one which CLAT things, or as a general person also, even if we have not studied law, we know what is freedom of speech and expression. So considering that, these are always very important. So constitutional law will be important. Then if we take into consideration criminal law, as I always say, they will not be asking questions from sections. They will not be asking questions like BNS is defining this or IPC is defining this. No. They may ask questions like what is culpable homicide? What is murder? What is common intention? What is similar intention? What is kidnapping? What is abduction? Basic concepts हमारा clear होना चाहिए. कौन सा section define करता है? That shouldn't be our concern from criminal law perspective. And similarly, like in last many classes, we have discussed about certain Supreme Court judgment. So considering those judgment, you need to keep an eye on. Similarly, in last class, we were talking about certain legislation which was introduced. So you also need to revise that. So इफ आई एम सेइंग दिस लगता होगा कि बहुत वास्ट थिंग है, बट नहीं, अगर आप वही लास्ट के 45 मार्क्स उठा के सॉल्व करोगे ना, ऑल दीज इंफॉर्मेशन हैज बीन समवेयर आस्क्ड इन द मॉक्स, whatever has been in news from family law perspective, whatever has been in news from constitutional law perspective, or any law for that matter, has been part of your legal section in mock for sure. So considering that, instead of looking for sources, just go back, revise your mock. Either you take the complete mock as a revision thing, or whichever is your weaker area, work on that. So this shall be your strategy for next 20-25 days, not 25 days, 20-24 days kind of. एक दिन तो अपने आप को rest देना है. So this is what I wanted to discuss with you guys. If you guys have any question, you may ask, like how you want to go about, or whatever I have suggested. Other than that also, if you have any question, floor is open for you guys, you may ask. Okay, so if there is no other question, then follow a routine, stick to your strategy, give your best last 20 days. Okay, score of 85. Yahan se Akshad, we have an option of increasing our score to at least 10 marks. So I will say that इट्स अ गुड स्कोर, ठीक है, बट यहाँ से इम्प्रूवमेंट का स्कोप है, एंड वी हैव टू इम्प्रूव, बिकॉज द मोमेंट यू टचेस दैट बार ऑफ 95 to 100 ना, यू आर ऑन अ सेफर साइड. एंड एक्चुअल क्लैट पेपर में अभी आप जितना स्कोर कर रहे हो, एक्चुअल क्लैट पेपर में इससे प्लस और -5 मार्क्स होते हैं. सो कंसिडरिंग दैट, हमें थोड़ा अपना बार रेज करना होगा. सो फॉर नेक्स्ट 20 days, ट्राई टू टच योर स्कोर टू 100 if you want to be in a good NLU. Okay, anything else? Okay, if there's nothing else, so good luck for your CLAT examination, guys. Please go back and revise, rewrite your mocks, and give your best. Thank you.